Hey, it's Anne Marie with Speak Confident English, and this week we're focused on grammar. I know that sounds a little bit boring, but I have a question for you. When you're speaking in English, do you sometimes have that little voice in the back of your mind that asks, "Did I say that right? Is that the right grammar tense?" And then you get stuck, you get frustrated because you're afraid that you've made a mistake, and in the end, you just stop speaking or you stay quiet. If you said yes to that question, then today's lesson is for you. We're going to talk about 5 of the most common grammar mistakes that I hear and some really simple strategies that you can use to fix them. Now, before we dive into those 5 common grammar mistakes, I want to talk a little bit about why those mistakes happen. The truth is, you've been studying and using English for years, and when we do something with repetition, we create habits. Those habits can be fantastic for helping us learn to use common expressions and useful vocabulary that we need for our daily life. But we can also form bad habits, and that's what we want to focus on breaking today. In fact, you might listen to someone else speaking English and recognize all the little mistakes that they make, but you might not hear it when you make them. Our goal today is to learn how to recognize those mistakes and use some simple strategies to fix them so that you don't have to worry about that little voice in the back of your mind asking if you did it correctly. And if you can fix these mistakes, it will take your English to the next level so that you sound like you're in control and you know exactly what you want to say. And the good news is the strategies that I share with you today can actually be used to help you resolve any mistake that you make with English grammar regularly. But today, we're going to focus on the 5 most common that I hear. So let's get started with mistake number 1. I want you to review these sentences and see if you can identify the mistake that's being made there. Hopefully you noticed there's that tiny little S that's missing on those verbs. When it's in writing, it seems so simple and clear, but when we're speaking, it's much harder to notice and correct the mistake, and there are a few reasons for that. Number 1, we're focused on so many different things, trying to find the right word, think of the right grammar tense. We have a lot going on in our mind at that moment. And we have that little voice that's distracting us and asking, is that right? And perhaps we've created some bad habits. So we no longer recognize that we're making that mistake. And that's what we want to focus on today. So here are 2 really simple strategies that will help you recognize this mistake and fix it. The first strategy is all about repetition, because repetition is what helps us create habits. So using some repetition drills and choosing a verb that you might use regularly and simply repeating the he, she, and it form with that final S sound and making sure that S sound is clear. For example, he loves, she loves, it loves, he goes, it goes, she goes. Just repeating those verbs regularly for just a minute or 2 every day while you're driving, walking your dog, doing the dishes. That little repetitive action can help to create that positive habit that we want with this grammar tense. The second thing that you can do is use one of my favorite strategies for building confident, fluent communication. In fact, this is a strategy that I use with all of my students. I want you to record yourself speaking and listen to it. And here's a simple way that you can do that with a focus on this final S sound. While you're watching a video or a TV show, I want you to turn off the sound just for a moment or 2. Get out your smartphone and start recording yourself as you talk about what actions you see. So you might describe a man in his apartment. He walks down the hallway, he opens the door, he sees the postman, etc., etc. Then after a minute or 2, you can stop speaking out loud, but go back and listen to your recording and evaluate how you did. Did you use the S sound with all of those verbs when you used he, she, or it? This method is effective for 2 reasons. Number 1, it has that repetition that will help you build that good habit. And number 2, It gets you focused on listening to yourself, recognizing your own patterns. If you don't know what mistakes you're making, you can't fix them. And this strategy, when you listen to yourself, helps you to develop the ability to hear yourself speak so that you can break those bad habits and build those new ones. With mistake number 2, once again, I want you to look at this list of sentences and see if you can identify what's missing. You probably noticed that we have ing verbs, but we're missing that extra verb that we need, the verb to be. For example, instead of I going to work, it should be I am going to work. One of the reasons this is an easy mistake to make and not recognize is because if you listen to native speakers communicate, they don't really say things like, I am going to work, or he is taking her to the station. Instead, we use the contracted forms, and those sounds blend together, which means they're a little bit more difficult to hear. So if you're listening to a lot of TV shows or in conversations with native speakers, you might not hear that verb so clearly. Instead, you're going to hear, I'm going to work, or he's taking her to the station. And as a result, it's a little bit easier to make this mistake, but we want to avoid it. And once again, building that new habit is all about repetition and recognizing the mistake. So an easy drill that you can do while you're working around the house, simply talk about what you're doing if you don't mind talking out loud to yourself. For example, right now I'm vacuuming, or I'm doing the dishes, I'm recording this video. Simply take a couple of minutes every day and talk out loud about what you're doing so you build in that repetitive habit. And secondly, you can also use that strategy of recording yourself to really focus on whether or not you're making this mistake regularly and work on fixing it. So you could record yourself talking about what your friends, family members, or coworkers are doing today. My mom's gardening, my dad's going to work, my best friend's getting her hair cut. Then, when you're finished, go back and listen and evaluate how you did. Mistake number 3 is a little bit more challenging because it deals with prepositions. And you and I both know prepositions in English are a total nightmare because we have no strict rules. Instead, we have all these patterns that you have to learn. But one of the most common mistakes I hear is using the preposition to in sentences like this. He told to her, or he asked to me. The truth is, when we use the verbs ask and tell, we don't need that preposition to. Instead, the verb is followed immediately by a personal pronoun or a person. For example, he asked Sam, or she asked me. My sister told him. We can just eliminate that preposition to. With mistake number 4, I want you to see if you can recognize the error in this sentence, and I want you to imagine that I still live in Chicago now. I haven't left. What do you think? What's wrong with that sentence? Hopefully you noticed that the verb have was missing from that sentence. And here we're dealing with the present perfect, which is particularly challenging in English. In fact, some languages don't have this particular time tense. So it's a little bit difficult to understand and use, and as a result, it's easy to form those bad habits. But let's take a little closer look at the present perfect. If I say I lived in Chicago for 2 years, the verb lived is in the past. It means it's over, it's finished. I left. I'm not there anymore. But the truth is, I still live in Chicago. I haven't left. So I need some way to express that. In English, we use the present perfect to help us do that. When I say I have lived in Chicago for 2 years, it means I arrived 2 years ago and I'm still there now. I haven't left. Nothing has changed. That time tense helps us communicate that. And we use this tense for things like where you work now. You might say, I have worked at this company for 10 years, 20 years, 6 months. Or if you have a hobby that you started 20 years ago and you still do it. For example, I've played piano for 20 years. Once again, that lets your listener know that it started in the past and it's still true today. Now, I know that the present perfect is particularly challenging, so I've got some extra practice activities for you in the online lesson. After you watch this video, be sure to check those out. In addition to that online practice that I have for you with the present perfect, the other thing that you can do to help fix this mistake is to look at some of the examples I have given you. And I want you to think about how you could use this form in your everyday conversation. If you think about an introduction that you have to make at a business meeting, or talking about how long you've worked at your company, you probably use some of the same sentences every day at work or in your introductions. And I want you to focus on using the present perfect form correctly. One great way to do that, as you now know, is to record yourself. Practice giving an introduction and make sure that your time tenses are correct. And finally, mistake number 5. Recently, I was talking with one of my students about a situation she has with a colleague at work that's, let's say, a little difficult or tense. And she asked me, do you have any advice for me? Advice? I'm not sure. Have you ever felt like that with words like advice, information, coffee, water? You're not sure if it should be water or waters, coffee, coffees? It's really tough to know. What makes it really difficult is most nouns in English have a singular, plate, or plural form, plates, cup, cups, plant, plants. But we do have some nouns in English that don't have the two forms. We call them non-count nouns. For example, the word advice. In that question that my student wanted to ask me, the correct answer was advice. Do you have any advice for me? Now, to fix this common mistake, so you don't have to worry about it and question yourself in conversations, I have a list for you of the 20 most common non-count nouns in the online lesson. I want you to review that list and then, using our strategy of repetition to create good habits, I want you to create a few sentences using those words. But here's the thing. I want you to create sentences that you would use in your real life. Think about what you do at work every day and the people that you talk to. Think about your conversations with your neighbors. I want you to create sentences that you regularly use, but with the correct form of the non-count noun. And use it often, repeat it to yourself so that when you're in a conversation, you can use it without questioning yourself or worrying about whether you're making that mistake. And with that, you have the simple strategies that you need to fix those 5 common grammar mistakes. If you use those strategies just for a little bit of time every day, you'll build those good habits that you need so that you don't have to worry about that little voice in the back of your mind asking, did I do that right? You can totally ignore that voice or just stop asking that question because you'll automatically use these grammar tenses correctly from those positive habits that you've created. If you enjoyed this lesson, I'd love to know, and there's 3 great ways that you can tell me. Number 1, give this video a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a future lesson. 2, if you've got a friend or colleague who struggles with some of the basics of English grammar, share this lesson with them on Facebook or by email. And finally, make sure that you go to the online lesson, check out the practice opportunities that I have for you, and at the end of the lesson, I have some challenge questions as well. You can share your answers, thoughts, and questions with me in the comment section at the end of the lesson. I always provide feedback, and it's a great way to learn from others in the Confident English community. With that, have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time for your Confident English lesson.